welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always, here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go for a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. I grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. Today we're going to be going over the Dragonflight prepatch. It has been out for... oh my god, my day, I've already lost track of days. A couple days for EU, it came out on the 16th. Or at least a couple days as of when this podcast goes live, this episode, and a few days for the NA and, you know, that side of the world where it's a weekly reset on the Tuesday over the Wednesday. We're going to be going over things such as the Drakthir and how they feel, how powerful they are, how much you enjoy them, or at least some people enjoy them. We're going to be going over the Primalist events, and we're going to be going over the starting zone with the Drakthir, you know, throw that all in there. And ultimately, we're going to go over everything that is within this sort of phase of the pre-patch, as we are less than 2 weeks away from Dragonflight launch, which will be, I can't wait. Get me out of Shadowlands right now. I want to go to Dragon Isles and I want to do my dragon riding, to be honest. So, we always start off with the weekly news. Now, this might be the last time we do the weekly news for several weeks, I believe. So, in regards to that, basically, the world bosses in Shadowlands will no longer be relevant. Once we head into Dragonflight, we will need the Dragonflight bosses. Now, there is always a world boss in Dragonflight, as well as the raid, obviously, but I do not believe, or I believe the world boss unlocks the same time as the raid, and the raid unlocks 3 weeks after the event. I literally just looked it up, and I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's 3 weeks. About two weeks, actually. We'll go with two weeks after Dragonflight launch. So the weekly news will not be there in terms of how full it has been, and you'll see that in this one because Arona Monos, Morgeth, and Antros are your world bosses for this week, and there is no bonus event for this week, and there will not be a bonus event until I believe it's Shadowlands Dungeons. Is the next bonus... no, not Shadowlands Dungeons. Dragonflight Dungeons is the next bonus event, but I wouldn't quote me on that. It might be World Quests. Actually, it's more like 90% World Quest bonus event first. But that's, again, once the raid opens. I need to know the name of the raid now. I'll get that for you in due time. But because I can't remember it off the top of my head. I really can't. I'm awful with remembering names. Hence why I have a little book in front of me. But yeah, essentially the weekly news will be a bit less over the next few weeks, but it will pick back up once everything gets going again in World of Warcraft, such as the world bosses, raids, etc. So we have the 3 world bosses. We have no bonus event for this week and for the next couple weeks going forward. The brawl for this week is South Shore versus Taran Mill. It's a massive 40v40. Do not go into this brawl if your PC is a potato, because it will blow up that potato. I'm sorry, it's something that is very enjoyable, that brawl, mainly because, especially if you're ranged, I will say, for melee it's kind of a snooze fest, unless you're willing to just jump in there, press an immunity, or get like a protection paladin to give you an immunity and just kill everything. But yeah, essentially you want to be arranged in this battleground. But yeah, not if you got a potato PC. The Mythic affixes for the very last week of Shadowlands, the last week of Season 4. We have Fortified, so the mobs that are non-boss enemies are a bit tankier. Yeah, that is true. Bursting, once you kill an enemy, they unleash a burst of damage and it puts a debuff on you. This debuff can stack indefinitely, so only go up to a certain amount of debuffs at a time, or be very helpful, or be very helping towards your healer and heal yourself. Pop defensive cooldowns if you go above or get too high stacks of this. Storming is the last affix, and this is just very simple. Watch out for the little storms that are going around when you pull mobs. And Shrouded, the last week that we will see this, the Nathrazim are hidden within mobs throughout the dungeon. make sure you kill them, as they give you a small stat buff, and it is very, very useful as it can stack quite high. Fairy Fire is the spell that we're going to be looking at the history of this week. So it's a very simple spell. It's not got many changes to it, but over time it has changed. So we go all the way back to before WoW was even in the game, to the test period, patch 0.9, back in 2004. It now stacks with armor reducing debuffs. Very good, very nice to have for the melee, such as warriors, rogues, etc. It got a small change 3 months after its release. Facing requirement has been removed. You actually had to face the target in order to apply it. This was quite annoying because if you were going against rogues, essentially they would kidney shot you and go behind you. So your first global would have had to been spin round immediately and Fairy Fire rather than just Fairy Fire. It gave the rogue time to potentially get away, vanish, stuff like that before you can get the spell off. In patch 3.1 is when it got its first change. That's 5 years later. It now decreases armor of the target by 5% and has a 5-minute duration, a 40-second duration in PvP. Very strong against rogues in PvP, anything that can stealth, druids, etc. For 40 seconds, not being able to is huge. It got a small hotfix in Cataclysm. Fairy Fire and Fairy Fire Feral now remove stealth, invisibility, vanish, shadow meld, and prowl from other players. So obviously it wasn't taking them out of stealth or whatever when you would apply it to them when in stealth. So nice little hotfix there. Then you have a couple changes in Mr. Pandaria. One in 2012, one in 2013, both a year apart. It was redesigned. The Fairy Fire Feral was removed, so all you had was Fairy Fire, and this just meant that you could use it in all forms. The Feral one just meant that you could use it in cat and bear form. And the year later, it has a duration of 20 seconds in PvP combat, down from 40. Makes sense, it was kind of crazy. In Warlords of Draenor, it got a few little tweaks. This was a year after this as well. Now available only to Feral and Guardian Druids, and no longer has a chance to reset Mangle's cooldown, which is huge, and no longer applies weakened armor, which makes sense. It's very much just a buff that you want to put on rogues to deter them from stealthing, or they have to use cloak to get it off. It basically made rogues use a cooldown, which is Cloak of Shadows, to get off that debuff. And then finally, in patch 7.0 in Legion, 2 years later, it was removed, sadly. Very simple spell, but it is gone for now. It was kind of redesigned as Fairy Swarm for Druids, which is not the same as Fairy Fire. It now disarms the target for 5 seconds, 5 or 6, I can't remember, but it is also a magic debuff, so it can be dispelled, but it is a very strong disarm tool if you're against a warrior, especially marksman hunters. When they press rapid fire, you just press this on them, and the rapid fire stops doing any damage, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's very fun spell, very simple, but it is gone into the history books of World of Warcraft as a little redesign, and I would imagine it's not coming back any soon, if that. So, Dragonflight pre-patch. Now, the Dragonflight pre-patch hit a couple weeks ago on about the 4th, but there wasn't much that you could do apart from the talent changes, which, by the way, were amazing. The talent changes in itself warrant their own kind of a standalone podcast, so I might do that in terms of how unique it is, how it makes all the classes seem, that kind of thing, but that's for another time. Essentially, we didn't get much in the first iteration of the pre-patch. The main bulk of the pre-patch came on the 15th and 16th, which was a few days ago, and it gave us the Drakthir for those that had pre-ordered Dragonflight. Now, the Drakthir can only be one class, and that is Evokers. Evokers are basically a mix between, or they are just dragons. They are sort of dragonkin that was made by Neltharion, and essentially they can wield all of the different aspects: magic, bronze, red, green, blue magic, and even black magic, such as the root and the deep breath, I believe it's called. They're fun. I'm just going to straight up say it. They are fun. They feel really good to play. So how do they feel to play? They feel very smooth. They don't feel clunky at all. The only thing that I can think is clunky is the empowered spells. You have 2 of them for DPS anyway. 2 main ones. You have a breath and you have sort of an arcane burst. What an empowered spell is essentially you either click and hold or click and then click again a spell, and it will slowly fill up a bar. So once you've filled up the bar to where you want it to be, you click again or release, and it will use the spell at that rank. Each rank gives a different what's the word to describe it? A different purpose, I guess. So I'm going to take deep breath, for example, or the breath, fire breath, I think it's called. The first rank essentially does a little bit of burst damage and puts a dot on the target for 24 seconds, and they take the rest of the damage in that 24 seconds. The second rank, they do a medium bit of damage and do a medium bit of dot damage over the 12 seconds. And then the third rank is a massive burst of damage and a small amount of dot damage over 6 seconds. So you can see where it goes. You can kind of put a dot on like loads of targets and it will still do its effective job, or you can do a massive burst of damage and have a very small dot on the target. PvPers will be going for the later stage, rank 3. PvEers will probably be going for rank 2. They could go for all of them, but if you're playing a high mythic key, you could probably get away with doing the first rank, because the dot by the end of it will have, basically done more damage at the end of the pack when they're about to die. So all PvEers can basically rejoice and say that, yep, I'll get lucky and just get to use any rank of that what I want. PvPers, you have to use rank 3, otherwise it's kind of niche, kind of meh, I'm not going to lie. The other example of this is the Arcane Burst, or whatever it's called. The first rank will hit 1 target, the second rank will hit 2 targets, 3 targets, and 4 targets. There is a talent that can allow you to go to a next stage of your empowered spells, and that is stage 4. So you can hit up to 4 targets with this empowered spell, and the same with Dragon Breath. You just do more damage and a smaller dot, essentially. They feel really good. The only, like I said, thing that is possibly clunky with them is the empowerment, because they take so long to sort of power up. In PvP, it's very tough to get these off, but when you do, Jesus, they hurt. So I was doing arenas earlier tonight. I was playing with 2 Drakthir, one of them being a healer, one of them being a DPS. Both undergeared. I was playing on my Boomkin, as usual, because I didn't fancy going on my Drakthir, I'm not going to lie. 3 undergeared Drakthir is very tough to win a game, I would say. Essentially, it's going bad at the start because we have no gear. Then it starts to pick up midway, and by the end we're going at least 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 wins, 1 loss, that kind of thing, Well, there was one game, Blade's Edge Arena. Demon Hunter, Evoker, DPS Evoker, and a Resto Shaman. We opened on the Resto Shaman, Root Beam Healer, or the Evoker, sorry, and just keep pumping. We get everything out of the Shaman within first 15 seconds. We get Ascendant, Spirit Link. Now, my call is they're all dying in the Spirit Link. They're all dead. They're all basically rotting away to just AoE damage and cleave. As I say that, I see a breath go off. This breath hits me, and I die. I'm in 70% HP. We'll say 70%. I'm not undergeared or anything as well. I'm pretty decently geared. I'm 290. 290, so just a little bit undergeared for Season 4, max Season 4. Now, 70%, we'll say 70k HP. I have about 70k HP. Okay, so what hit me? It must have been loads of things. 1 fire breath killed me. From 70 to 0, 1 fire breath, and it could have killed me twice with the amount of damage that this fire breath did. Now, we were all joking before, like saying, oh my god, you're getting like loads of high damage with your fire breaths. Because the Dragthir, or the Evoker that we were queuing with, was dealing anywhere between 20k with a fire breath to 55k. And it's like, holy shit, that's like insane. I got hit for 133k from a fire breath. Take that into consideration. This is a lower geared character near a max geared character, and I got hit for 133k. To put this into perspective, in bear form, where I gain health, I have 106k. At full HP, at 100% HP. In boomkin form, I have about, God knows, 90-ish, 85, somewhere between that. 133k. I was in boomkin form because I was safe. I was at 70, 80% HP. So I was in boomkin form. I wasn't thinking I'm about to die. So I have 85k, we'll say. 133k, okay. You take that away. I'm going to round it up, 135. You take that away. You've got 50k overkill there. That is more than half of my health bar again. It was crazy. It's one of them things you just have to sit there and laugh. I've got the clip of it. It's actually really good. It's one of them things. Because obviously it's off season, rating doesn't mean anything. You can't get glad. You can't get anything at all. It doesn't really matter. It's just more practicing for those that want to play Evoker, and I'm just trying to learn Evoker myself by going against it, by playing with it. I learn through visually seeing stuff, so I can sort of tell when Evokers are going to burst now just by looking at it and viewing it in games and stuff. You know, it's one of them things. But yeah, 133k, so I'm guessing the numbers are going to be tuned a bit. I've heard in Dragonflight that the numbers at max level sort of go up quite heavily. Around sort of, I think, BFA? Or Warlords of Draenor? I can't remember who had high numbers. I know Legion had, like, stupidly high numbers in, like, the millions. I think Battle for Azeroth had, like, somewhat high numbers. I'm pretty sure they had, like, 200k, so we're going to get around there. But yeah, 200, 300k is your health pool at the end of Dragonflight, is what is expected, I believe. So you can almost one-shot someone in full Dragonflight gear with that ability at the moment, which seems a bit ridiculous. Hopefully that scales, or it doesn't scale. Hopefully it stays the same, the breath like damage, because it seems like if the breath damage now or taken now is the same, then essentially it will be fine at endgame. But if it scales, like going through the leveling, it won't be fine. It will need a nerf. The numbers tweaking, obviously, they can see during the pre-patch and do that before any sort of PvP season goes live or any sort of raiding goes live. They can always tweak that. Hence why they've got this sort of month before the raid actually comes out, essentially. Yeah, they're very powerful, is the best way to put the Dragthir. They're very good in terms of burst, but consistent damage, they don't have a lot. They have, obviously, Disintegrate, and if you can keep uptime on your Disintegrate and you're not the target, then great. Peel-wise, you can go into sort of more utility-based Dragthir or Evoker and go for sort of a lift-off where you can pick people up and drag them to a certain position. You can go for an immunity or a sort of semi-cyclone. You can go into a alter time, an unfriendly alter time for the opposition. You can bring them back to a certain time in the game where they have a certain or lower HP and stuff like that. So their utility is great and they feel very powerful. Enjoyment-wise, they are, like I said, very fun. The Preservation, I believe it's called, Preservation. Evokers, from what I've heard, are one of the most enjoyable healers in the game, which is really good. I'm all for having healers that are enjoyable. I would love to see them in raiding content, AWC, PvP content. I'd love to see them anywhere, because any healer that is enjoyable means that they will get played. And it's nice to actually spice things up in metas, such as PvP metas or raiding metas. It's nice to have a different class come through. Now, obviously, every class that has been released has always been a bit overtuned, let's face it. Death Knights in Wrath, yeah, they were a little bit overtuned. Demon Hunters were alright. Monks, I believe, were pretty powerful, if I remember correctly. Have we had any others? I don't believe so. No, I don't believe so. So yeah, anything that's brought out is usually a little overtuned, but that's just tweaking damage numbers, essentially. It's not that big of a deal, and it's one of the last things that Blizzard do before a expansion releases, usually. So I wouldn't get too worried if you're getting one shot by Evokers right now, because they're probably seeing it. They're probably seeing how much damage the breath is doing. They might just reel it back in PvP, might stay the same for PvE. You know, they can do many things. But essentially, yeah, they'll get round to it. The primal events. Actually, we'll go with the primal events and then we'll circle back round to the starting zone for the Drakthir as the final piece. Primal events pop up every couple hours, every 2 to 3 hours, and there are 4 different types: fire, water, earth, and air. These primal events give essences. These essences can be used to purchase gear, 252 item level gear, very decent, just to catch a Drakthir up. And essentially you can get from the bosses a stone. Now these stones combined, I believe, make an heirloom. I'm not too sure. I have 3 out of 4 of them. I'm looking for the water one at the moment, but yeah, it's very fun. It's very enjoyable. It's good to go and practice on your Drakthir, because everything seems quite tanky there. So it gives you sort of a really good understanding of how to actually pilot your Drakthir and your Evoker in terms of surviving, your utilities, your kiting ability, your damage. You know, getting used to it in a tougher environment will help you learn quicker than just hitting a training bot, essentially, because you're thinking on your feet. Well, that's how I work anyway. It might not be the same for everyone else, but it is how I learn a class, essentially. Now, there's not much to say about the Primalist events. They're very enjoyable. They're kind of like the Legion ones, the Shadowlands. Were there Shadowlands ones? I don't know. I don't think there were. No, there must have been. I can't remember. But yeah, essentially they are basically like the Legion ones, where you go and defeat a load of NPCs and then a boss spawns, kill the boss, get some loot. Very simple. And yeah, not much more to say about them, really. They're quite enjoyable to do, but they are there for learning a Drakthir eventually, and you can get some good gear and XP, actually. They are very good for leveling up your ults. So if you have an ult, hop on over there, tag every mob that you can so that everyone kills it, and you will power through levels, trust me. Now, going back to the starting zone for the Drakthir, how good is it? I kind of want to compare it to the other starting zones of classes or races that have been released. These races include Worgen, Goblins. What was the others? Monks. What's the monk class? Pandaren. I think that's it. Obviously, you have all of the allied races, such as the trolls, Nightborn, and stuff, but they don't have a starting zone. They have a quest, and you take a portal to the main city. So I'm not including them. I can't remember any more. Am I missing something? Oh, Demon Hunters. Demon Hunters had their own starting zone, didn't they? God. And Death Knights. Oh my god, I'm losing the plot here. So I'm going to kind of be comparing them to all of them. In my opinion, I would say that the Death Knight starting zone is the best. So I'm going to be basing it off of that. And the worst one, again, in my opinion, is the Goblin one, I'm afraid. Now, some people might completely disagree. Some people might think it's the opposite way around. Don't get me wrong, the Worgen one is not so great either. The Demon Hunter one is very good. The Pandaren one I quite like because you're on a giant turtle. It shows how you come into contact with the Horde Alliance. I know the others do as well, but it's a bit more impactful. It's like you're chilling on your turtle and then suddenly they just crash land next to you instead of like, oh, they're just showing up to help these goblins. Great. That kind of thing. And the Death Knight one's definitely the best one because obviously it shows how you break free of the Lich King's grasp and how the order is formed there to start off the expansion, and by the end of the expansion you're killing the Lich King, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm gonna try and compare it to them, but essentially I enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. It was a very snappy introduction. That's the best way to describe it. They don't need a massive introduction. They give a lot of ways to just say, oh, this is what happened. Oh, this is what happened. There's a few things that you can like look for around the Isle, the Forbidden Reach, I believe it's called, or the Forbidden Isle. Forbidden Reach. No, it's definitely Forbidden Reach. I'm not 90% sure it is. But yeah, there's like loads of little tablets that you can read saying what was here. So there's a little tablet near the end that shows the green Dragonflight or the green Dracthyr, like sort of living quarters. And it gave an example of like what they did. They were the healers. It gave an example, the same for the bronze, same for like the red and stuff like that. And it was very snappy. It led into who is going to be the first protagonist. No, wait, antagonist. That's the word. Antagonist of the raid, which is the Stormbringer Primalist, I believe. I forget her name. But yeah, essentially she looks quite cool. I love the Primalist dragons. They actually look very, very cool. They look very scary and they look very dangerous, which is very good. It's something that you're worried to fight rather than just, oh, it's Anduin with a scary sword. Oh no, that's a shame. Yeah, it's one of them things. I thought it was very good. If I had to compare it to the Death Knight Starting Zone, it's very punchy and it does give a good explanation. How you basically reawaken, you're wakening up your brethren, your fellow Dracthyr, and the big bad, how the big bad is released, and it does explain it, whereas it's kind of the same as the Death Knight Starting Zone, but there's so much lore behind the Death Knight Starting Zone, like Jesus Christ, it's insane. I would rate it a decent 6, 7. I can't really give it much more than a 7. 7's like the pinnacle of it. A decent 6. I like how very short and snappy it is. It's not very long-winded. The Worgen one feels so long because of how bad it is, as well as the Goblin one, to be honest. It feels so long that you're on these islands of Kazan and stuff, and in Gilneas. It's just, it drags. So very short and punchy is very good in these starting zones. The Demon Hunter one, again, is very short and snappy. You're not there for hours on end, and you can kind of see where it will end up because of the map, like geography, essentially. But yeah, that is it for this week. Thank you all very much for listening. Please do check out the Patreon for ad-free content, such as well as Twitch and YouTube. Twitch, we're having constant streams on there. Sunday and Wednesday are the best times to guarantee a Twitch stream, as this is raiding days on Classic. And, there are others in between these days. But once again, thank you all very much for listening, and go Valor friend. Goodbye all.